There's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamma Mia podcast.
Mamma Mia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on.
This episode deals with issues of self-harm and suicide. Listener discretion is advised.
Lee Iordanidis gets a phone call.
Hi, Darlin, how are you? How you feeling?
She asks the person on the other end of the line. It's compassion first, always. And then she gets down to business. She's been flown to New Zealand, Germany, England, not to mention right across Australia. There's only 4 individuals with her expertise in this country, and she's in hot demand. That's because she's doing a job most people would run away from. A job that has her brushing up against maggots, rats, flies, and human decomposition that seeps its way through the carpet, floorboards, and down into the cement below. Nothing ever shocks her. She's seen it all. But as Lee will tell you, you never get used to the smell of death, even as a crime scene cleaner.
I've walked past a house and I've said to my husband, there's a dead body in there. I can smell it. Once you smell it, you'll never forget it.
I'm Gemma Barth, and this is True Crime Conversations, a Mamma Mia podcast exploring the world's most notorious crimes by speaking to the people who know the most about them. Today's episode is a bit different from our usual episodes. Instead of focusing on one particular crime or criminal, we're looking at the career of forensic cleaner Lee Iordanidis. Lee's been cleaning crime scenes for 30 years and has seen things that many people couldn't even imagine in their worst nightmares. Because of that, today's conversation is definitely not for the faint-hearted, and as mentioned in the disclaimer at the start of this episode, there are mentions of suicide. So if you need to give this one a miss, we understand, and you'll hear from us next week. With that all said, here is my true crime conversation with Lee Iordanidis. Lee, tell me about your upbringing and your family's relationship with death.
I was brought up in a very big Irish Catholic family, and my wonderful grandfather, Danny Boy, was a grave digger. And we were always taught that death is nothing to be frightened of. It's inevitable. From the minute you're conceived, you're going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it. So just embrace life every second and go forward the best you can.
So death to you was just a part of life. Even as a young girl, that was how you felt?
Always, always. We were brought up not to be frightened. It was always ingrained in us being Catholics. You know, they believed they're going to heaven and all that. And we thought that death was a part of life. Embrace it. Say goodbye to the person. You're going to see them again. And that's how I feel. And I still feel that way. Live every second to the best you can, because you never, ever know when your time is up.
And you mentioned your grandfather was a grave digger, so your family worked in and around death all the time?
Yes. And we used to go to the cemeteries and walk around them as kids, and we weren't scared. Granddad used to always say, and my mum still says it to this day, be scared of the ones that are alive, not the ones that are dead.
What did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a girl or a young woman?
I don't think I ever thought I was going to be a crime scene cleaner. I actually wanted to join the police force. And then when I got to my teens and worked out, you know, it's fun to be a girly girl and paint your nails and get your hair done and everything, I thought I would be a hairdresser. And I worked in hairdressing for a while, and then it wasn't what I wanted to do. I was probably a bit of a, I can't make up my mind, I'll just try something else. So then I went and worked for lawyers. I didn't like that job because I was seeing people who were guilty getting off if they had the right amount of money to pay the right solicitors and the barristers. And to me, that didn't sit well. So I had a friend who committed suicide, and his parents were told to clean up the mess because the police don't do it. And fair enough to them, they've done their part, they've done their investigating, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for the police force. And so I went to Bunnings and I bought a painter's suit, gloves, boots, and a mask. And I didn't even buy a respirator because I didn't know what to expect because, I had not been in a death scene before. You see it on TV, but it's nothing like what you really see. And I put this mask on, walked in, nearly got knocked over by the smell, and he'd hung himself in a wardrobe and had decomposed over 4 days while his parents were away. So we had to rip out the cupboards, rip out the carpets underneath, rip out the floorboards. And this is me being a hack. It's like, oh, Christ, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. All I know is I'm getting the smell out. And then just cleaned it up and they went back in and I thought, I found what I need to do. This is it.
How old were you at the time? Because that would have been quite confronting. That was a close friend of yours?
Very close friend. Very close friend. And I miss him till this day. I was about 28 and then I did a lot of study because this is not something you can play around with. You can't just go in and do what I did. There are so many health problems that you can get because you're breathing in pathogens from the dead body, the decomposing body. You're dealing with maggots. You're dealing with flies. I've walked into a room and I've turned the light on and it was still pitch black and it was full of flies.
Wow.
Yeah. So things are very confronting.
What did you have to study to become a crime scene cleaner? Because there's not many in Australia, are there?
No, I think there's about 4. So I did forensic cleaning, infection control, psychopaths and sociopaths, risk assessment, forensic investigation at the crime scene, the role of the forensic investigator, forensic biology, death investigation, the art and the science. And that's about all. That was quite a big list. But to know the role of the investigator, you have to know that, when the police come in and everything, you can't just trundle in because you can ruin the crime scene. So you have to have all that background.
But who did you learn all of this from? Or did you kind of just make up what and where you were going to study? If there's only 4 people in the whole country, were you just making it up as you went along as to, I might need that and I might need this?
No, there are courses. There are courses you can do. And I did some of them at University of Technology, I think it's called. And I did some courses at Westmead Hospital. And the police officer that did the granny killers was one of our lecturers. And you learn as you go. And, the thing that still gets me is the smell. I'm never shocked by what I see because I've seen, I think, everything. I don't think there's one thing left to shock me. But you never get used to the smell of death, ever.
What does it smell like?
My thought is you go out to the rubbish tip on the hottest day ever and multiply that by 1,000,000 and you might be getting close. It is a smell unto its own. It gets into every pore. It gets up your nose. It's just a horrible smell. And I've walked past a house and I've said to my husband, there's a dead body in there. I can smell it.
Oh, wow.
Once you smelt it, you'll never forget it.
I just keep thinking about the families that if there's only 4 of you, you're like hen's teeth. There's not many of you around. So what happens to the families that don't have access to someone like you to clean? Do they have to just do it themselves? How do they even do something like that?
I've been overseas to do crime scenes. I've been all around Australia. I've been to New Zealand and I've been to Germany and I've been to England. So people contact you. But the people who contact me, and you can genuinely hear that they just don't know what to do, and you can tell they haven't got much money. I have done jobs for free because I can't let them do it themselves. It would psychologically damage someone. But I'm sure there are people that have gone in and cleaned up after their own family member, and I would hate to be them. I would hate to be them. It's a horrible scene. It's a horrible smell. And to think it's your family member, I think it would play on you so badly.
How much does a clean set someone back? Obviously, that would change depending on what you're cleaning. But if you are cleaning a quite gruesome crime scene, are we talking thousands, hundreds? How much ballpark?
5 figures.
5 figures. Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm. And it's the length of time, because some jobs can take you a day. Some jobs can take you 3 weeks, 4 weeks to complete, because there's so much to do. You've got to get rid of the flies. You've then got to get rid of the maggots. Then you've got to tear up the carpet. Then you've got to tear up the wooden floors or cement floors. So then you're digging up cement. You've got a jackhammer and you're taking up cement. And then you've got to check that it hasn't got into the soil underneath the house, because that smell will stay there. So you're under the house digging up soil from under the house. I've been in some funny spots.
Lee, you're not a cleaner, you're a demolisher. You have to completely pull apart houses. You
do. You have to knock down walls. You have to rip up floors. Yeah, I'm a cleaner with a bit of a, passion for bashing down walls too.
Do you have a team, or is it just you?
Oh, God, no. I have a team. I'm only 5'7". I'm a little blonde. I have a team of brawny boys.
Lee, how are your services called upon? Because you mentioned that it's not the police, it's the family. Do they get your number off the police? Do they find you online? How do you come into contact with these families?
Sometimes the police can recommend you, but they're not supposed to, because obviously you can't have favouritism. But they will point the families towards the website, and then the families ring you up, and we have a very, very long talk, because my first port of call is, okay, what they do. Did they shoot themselves? Where'd they do it? My first port of call is, hi, Darlin, how are you? How you feeling? Let's talk for a little while. And I talk to them for a while, and then I say, okay, so I think because you've called me, I think you need my help. So what can I do for you? And I don't care how long that phone call takes, but that's how I deal with people.
So you provide that real kind of emotional crutch for these people. You're not just a cleaner, you're kind of helping them as well.
I spend a lot of time talking to them. I spend a lot of time at the scene talking to them. I will never let them in, even though they ask, can they come in? I will never let them in the house. I stand there and I will give them as much support as they need. I've had people, when I've finished the job, they've rung me and asked me if I could come back and go inside with them. So, yeah, I'm a psychiatrist without the qualifications. But you know what? People are at their most vulnerable point. They're dealing with grief. We all know it's going to happen, but it hits everybody in a different way.
Are you still in touch with any of the families you've cleaned for?
Yes. I still go at Christmas time and have drinks with them. I still go to some family barbecues, and they come to some of my parties as well. So just because we finish a job, they still lean on me. Like, I had one family even come and ask me to go to the auction of the house so that I could be there to support them when the house was being auctioned off. So it's a big service we offer. We're not just a cleaner, we're their new best friend, we're their shoulder to cry on, we're everything at that point.
Is that what makes the job rewarding for you? Because I can't imagine it's the maggots.
Definitely not the maggots. For me, it's the people. If I know that their house is safe, I always say I walk into hell and walk out of heaven. And if I can walk someone back through the house and they are safe and they feel okay, that's it. I've done my job. I can go home and sleep easy.
Lee, is there a particular scene that you arrive on that you just like going to the most? Because I would assume those, there would be horrendous murder scenes that would be really confronting. Is that what's hardest, or what's the hardest for you?
The hardest job for me to go to is a child. That is the hardest. That is the hardest. I've had quite a few kids that I've had to do, and I remember every little face, and I remember every little thing in their rooms or wherever they were killed. One little boy was 8 years old and was getting bullied so much that he went inside and hung himself.
That's heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah. It just brings it back, just even thinking about it now.
Yeah, for sure. But at least you could be there for that family to do that for them, because imagine if they had to.
Oh, my God. His little sister found him, which was, that kid will need therapy for a long time, I'm sure. But, yeah, they couldn't have cleaned it up, and they just wanted everything taken out of the room. They just didn't want anything left around. Yes, so that was horrible.
When you arrive on scenes, the police would have, done everything they've needed to do, removed the body, all of that. And I might be getting a bit too woo-woo, but is there a certain energy in some of these rooms that you walk into? Because
yeah,
I can't help but feel it would be very eerie.
There is, I think, and I'm going to sound like a nut now because I do believe in the supernatural. I don't think that we just die and that's it. I do believe that there is something else. I don't know what, but I do believe there's something else. There was one scene, a gentleman had died in a hotel room. It was a rent by the week hotel room. And he had virtually nothing. But he had this ugly Buddha candle. And one of my boys said to me, "Oh, we're going to throw this out now." And I said, "No, we're not." And it felt like someone was saying to me, "Take this bloody candle with you." So I took this ugly friggin' thing, put it in my garage for 3 years. 3 years later, the daughter tracked me down to ask if I had kept anything from the scene. And it was a present she had given him. And I was able to give it back to her.
Yeah, wow.
And another one was, and it was my neighbour, it turned out to be my neighbour. She committed suicide in a beautiful hotel in the city. She cut her wrists, took pills, drank wine, and sat in a spa on a very hot day and ended up cooking herself.
Oh, Lee.
And I didn't know it was my neighbour till I came home and we got a good gossip session going on with our older neighbours, and they knew everything about it. And I went, "Oh, shit, that was her." I was just there. And the door kept slamming. And I kept saying, "Shut the bloody front door," to my team. I said, "Shut the front door. The door keeps slamming." And they're going, "We're not touching it." They had a little kitchenette and the power had gone out, and the stove where the numerals are started flashing help. And that freaked me out when I saw that. It was like, oh, my God, this is when she died and now the stove's flashing help. So, yeah, you do get the, up the back of your neck, you go, And you can always tell if it's been, a happy home or, a very sad home, a very lonely home.
How on earth do you deal with this emotionally, Lee? Because the story you've just told, I don't know how you go home at night after that, realising it's your neighbour, someone you knew.
Because I really believe this was what I was meant to do. And if you believe in your job and have the passion of your job and you believe that you're going to do good for the people left behind, you've got no worries. And, I come from a mad Irish family. I was mad already. So, I was behind the 8 ball before we even started.
You're listening to True Crime Conversations with me, Gemma Barth. I'm speaking with forensic cleaner Lee Iordanidis. Lee, I want to get to some of the other jobs you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the time a murderer confronted you in the home you were cleaning.
Didn't confront me. He jumped on me. We wear little walkie-talkies on the side of our suits so we can make sure everyone's safe in every room. And I was in this house and I said, these effing possums, how big are they? Shut up. And I was screaming at these, what I thought were possums in the roof. And I went, they're too well fed over here. And next thing I know, the ceiling door opens up, the little trap door where the ladder goes up and down. And this man jumped on top of me. And I went, I walkie-talkie my boys and I went, I've got a man on top of me. And one of them comes back and says, oh, lucky you. And I went, no, I'm serious. And he was a very big boy. And the boys wrestled him off. And we rang the police and went, we've got your boy here. You better come and get him. And they were there in a flash. Murderers do return to the scene of the crime. That's not a fallacy. It is the truth.
Did you know as soon as he jumped on you that was the man? Did you know what he looked like? Or was it just a gut, or you just assumed it was the man?
It was a gut feeling that no one would be in this smelly house unless they had to be. So as soon as he hit me, I went, I'm either dead or I've got to get the boys. And that thought happens in a split second. I'm either going to get killed or I've got to get the boys. And they came and saved the day.
Is that the only time you've been in actual true danger while on the job?
No.
Oh.
We were cleaning a hotel, rent by the hour, in King's Cross. And we were cleaning the awning of the junkies' syringes. So we were talking to the junkies through the window, like they were smoking crack in front of us, and they didn't care. We had our white suits on and we were doing our job, and they were hanging out the window going, oh, do you want some? And I've been talking to them for hours. So I went and changed into my blue King G's because I was getting a bit grotty and I just thought I've got to get in the car, so I just want to be a bit cleaner. So as soon as I walked up the stairs, he opened the door and had a knife and put it against my throat. It was a cop because I was in blue. And I said, I've been talking to you for hours. And he was so off his head, he didn't believe me. And the boys said, you've been talking to her for hours. You've been talking to her, mate. You've been talking to her. And he finally believed them. As a parting gift, he stabbed me with his syringe.
Oh, Lee.
Yes.
What was in it?
I don't know. I went to the hospital and we had to wait 3 months to be tested to see if I had HIV. I didn't.
That would have been a terrifying 3-month wait, though.
It was the scariest 3 months. My husband actually took me off just to not think, take me shopping in Paris and things like that, which was very nice of him, but it didn't sort of take that out of my head. It was like, go back, Pete, and we're going to find out. And then I've had another idiot with a gun do the same thing, talk to me for ages. Same hotel, though. I don't think I'll go back to that hotel. And he had a gun at me. He hit me in the head with the gun. Yeah, so.
Are there any crime scenes you've cleaned that we would know? Any familiar names that you can tell us about?
The love triangle, that was at Edgecliff, where 3 chefs worked together. 2 of them were about to get married. This new boy comes into the job, and so all of a sudden the girlfriend's taken the same days off as this other guy. And the fiancé puts 2 and 2 together and comes home and finds them in bed together. And hence, the other boy's not here to tell the tale. She survived, and the other boy is now in jail.
There's another story featuring an ear that's quite well known.
Oh, my God, the ear. The ear, the ear, the ear. This is another one that breaks my heart. Mother, father, going through divorce, fighting for custody. Father had the son for the weekend. Mother comes Monday to pick up son. Son is shot dead. Father shoots himself. Unfortunately, the little boy died. And unfortunately, the father lived. So he's taken off to hospital and we get a phone call. Can you find an ear? And I thought, because there's one policeman that plays tricks on me. And so I told him to go and get stuff that was hot, and I didn't want to hear his shit. And he goes, no, really, we need the ear. So we looked everywhere. We looked where we thought the ear would have blown off. Next thing I know, I'm hearing this very happy dog next door chomping on something that sounds very gristly. So chomp, 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 chomp. Looked over the fence. Guess what? Dog's got the ear. Uh-oh. Now, let me tell you, we'd been there for hours. It was stinking hot. Let me tell you, being a forensic cleaner is the best diet you can ever have, because I lose about 6 pounds every time I do a job. So I'm thinking, how the hell are we going to get this ear? Because the dog next door wasn't one of those cute, fluffy puppies. It was like a bull terrier. So I'm thinking, who's going to go over the fence and fight with the dog? So I sent the boys up to get a pig's ear. So we go up, we start walking up the neighbour's path with this bloody ear, trying to coax this dog to give the ear up. Come on, puppy, please, puppy. Here, yummy. We're even biting on the pig's ear, looking like complete fools. The neighbours must have thought, these people are mad. So we finally got the ear. Let me tell you, that man is going to have the ugliest ear in the world, and he deserves it.
So they put it back on him with like bite marks in it?
Yeah. Well, if you see a body without an ear, it's just a hole. So I suppose you'd rather have something.
Have you ever found any leftover evidence that the police have forgotten? Because these are crime scenes that I'm assuming they kind of like go through meticulously, but do they ever leave anything behind?
I've had 2 that I can think of. And this is no fault of the police, because you have to understand, if a crime is committed in a lounge room, the police have a warrant to search that area. Unless they have a warrant to search the whole house, they are stuck to the area where the crime has happened. And this is why our laws are pretty shit. And our government needs to look at it to give the police a bit more power. But anyway, this woman stabbed her, I think he was de facto, in the kitchen. And because we were told to clean up, I was following drops of blood up the hallway. And I saw blood on the handle of the bedroom closet. So I opened it and I put my hand up on the top shelf and I found a knife. So I found the murder weapon. So I rang the police up and I said, I found your murder weapon, or what I think is the murder weapon, because I found blood leading to this knife. So anyway, I had to wait outside. We weren't allowed to continue. We had to wait outside and get a whole new search warrant drawn up to entail going up the hallway and going into the bedroom. And then I had to say on film that, yes, this is where I found it, this is how I found it. And so that solved that crime. So They found where the knife was. Didn't solve the crime. They still had to go through court and everything, and, people get off on light cases. And then there was another one where they had finished the scene and they thought that the woman had fallen down the stairs and died. So we went in and we were cleaning up the blood and we were cleaning up all the fingerprint dust that the police scatter everywhere. So we looked at this painting that was down at the bottom of the stairs. And on the back of it were fingerprints where someone had grabbed it and hit someone with it. So there was the actual fingerprints of someone had hit this person with this painting. So I rang the police and I said, this doesn't look right to me. Like, why would there be fingerprints on the back of this painting? So the police came round again, closed off the site, and same thing.
So you've solved 2 crimes.
Well, helped.
Helped to solve 2 crimes.
And I have a third one as well, but that's bragging. But it's because I've got a good eye and I've always looked and I've always listened. If you look at my library, there is no true love or anything like that. Everything is crime.
Oh, so even in your personal life, you're living, breathing true crime?
Living, breathing true crime. I watch all the crime shows on TV. I don't watch horror films anymore because my husband says, you've spoilt it. Because I always sit there and go, the blood doesn't spurt that way. The eye wouldn't land that way. So horror has kind of been turned off for us. But yeah, there's nothing in my library fluffy, let's put it that way.
Are there any particular times of year or events, or do you have like a busy period? Is that a weird thing to ask a forensic cleaner?
Anything that's a major holiday, like Christmas, New Year, Easter, birthdays. People who want to commit suicide or do something to devastate their family will do it on times that are important to that family member. And if everybody knew how many suicides there were in the world happening every day, people would be very scared.
How many jobs do you go to are suicide? Is that the majority of your work?
The majority is suicide and unattended deaths. So old people who have died by themselves. And that's very sad as well. And to think no one cared. There's 3 types of families. The ones that are absolutely broken down and just beaten, their families committed suicide or, been killed and they can't say goodbye to them. Second family is when you go in there, love, can you just find me the bank books and the title deeds? And the third one is you choose, you make sure that we have something of his or hers to keep, but everything else get rid of. So I'm touching the last thing this person has ever touched, who has just died, and then the family wants me to decide what to keep.
Yeah. Well, you're getting a real insight into human kind of psychology.
Yes.
What's the worst kind of cleaning-wise scene you've had to go to? Because, you mentioned maggots, rats. You also mentioned not opening a door and feeling shocked. But how? Maggots, rats, blood. Is there a scene that stands out to you in particular?
There is one scene. He lived across the road from his family because he was, I suppose, a prepper would be the best way to describe him. And he'd put all these metal things up against the windows, and he had like traps set and everything. And the family warned us and said, there's traps in there. And I went, oh, great. How do you know where a trap's going to be? But the worst thing was he had decomposed through everything. And I'm talking everything. Bed, bedding, carpet, timber floors, down into the dirt. And the way he died was his bowel exploded. So the whole body had just gone everywhere. And you kind of look and you go, where the hell do you start? But again, it's the smell. Nothing shocks me. The only thing that scared me was I had a house that was infested with redbacks. And I put my hand in the cupboard and I had this massive redback sitting on my hand. And I thought I was going to die. And I've seen everything, and this redback nearly put me through the floor. I was scared to death.
So you're more scared of the spiders than the blood?
I'm more scared of the spiders than the blood.
Lee, what do strangers say when you tell them what you do?
I never tell anyone what I do. I always ask them, what do you think I do? And I get the hairdresser, makeup artist, something to do with fashion. And I went, I think you better sit down and have a drink. And I go, I'm a forensic cleaner. And they're like, you see them, the eyes start rolling, like they're trying to process it. And they go, does that mean you go into crime scenes? And I'm like, yep. And then they're the ones that go, this horrible shade of white and run for the hills. Or the other ones that go, tell me more. So there's people who really want to know, and there's people that think that I'm an alien.
Well, you're definitely very mentally strong, but do you have certain tactics or things that you do to help you shake off your day? Because some of those days would be really tough.
You know what? The days are tough, but I come home to a really good, strong family. I have a wonderful husband, and let me tell you, two sure things in life, death and taxes. He worked for the tax department. I worked with death. So we were made to be together.
It sounds like we need more of you. We need to just duplicate you 100 times over, because the job you're doing, you know, it's something that no family should have to do.
God, no.
What would you say to someone, you know, who might be listening to this even and thinking, oh, I wouldn't mind getting into that? What kind of attributes do you have to handle it?
You've got to have a very strange sense of humour. You've got to be prepared to vomit the first time you smell death. And you've got to have a great eye for detail. And you've really got to go in there and see if you can do it. Not everyone can. Not everyone can. So there's no weakness in it. But, you know, if you can't do the crime scene cleaning and you are interested in forensics and that, go join the police force. Get into the other side of it. You know, fingerprinting or, you know, investigation or photography or whatever. Or you just have to be really mad. Maybe that's the truth.
This is one of the most extraordinary interviews I have ever done in the true crime space. Lee's level of honesty, detail, much of it quite gruesome, removes any pretense that crime is something to be glamorised. We often see and hear a glossed over version, the gore, but not the horror. Lee dismantles all of it. Lee's also been working with the team behind The Cleaner, a show about a forensic cleaner written by and starring Greg Davies and featuring Helena Bonham Carter, which you can view exclusively on BritBox. True Crime Conversations is a Mamma Mia podcast hosted by me, Gemma Barth, and my executive producer is Gia Moylan. If you have a case you think we should cover next, get in touch with us. Send an email to truecrime@mamamia.com.au or join our online community. Just search for True Crime Conversations on Facebook and make a request to join. If you love the show, the best thing you can do is become a Mamma Mia subscriber. Mamma Mia subscribers get access to every podcast, exclusive videos, and all the great articles on Mamma Mia. It only costs $5.75 a month, which is less than a large coffee or a small coffee if you get oat milk. If you believe in women's media, if you believe in a purpose-driven media company like Mamma Mia, whose core purpose is to make the world a better place for women and girls, please see the link in our show notes.